Um, I just want to go over and give you a little orientation of the course and what's expected of you each week. So here's your welcome video that you obviously found. But what you need to do each week is contained in these modules. So this is the module for week 1. You can collapse it or expand it. When you expand it, in each week there'll generally be a quiz. So the quiz for this week, there's 2 of them because it's the first week. But generally there'll just be one. This one, for week 1, you have a quiz on your material. And you can click on the data collection quiz. This is material that will be covered. So in this quiz, you can have your slides right here that you can go over, and these can be open, or you can watch a recorded lecture right here. Okay, and that's generally true for every single quiz you have. And this corresponds to material in your textbook. Here's the corresponding information from your textbook or for these other sources. Then here are some extra reading opportunities should you be interested. Okay. It's important to pay attention to these fields. So the points are shown here. They're not always 60. The time limit, important piece of information. Here there's no time limit, and you're allowed multiple attempts, and the attempts are specified to be 2. Your average score is recorded. Okay. So let's preview this quiz just so that you're familiar with the format. So keep in mind this quiz is on data collection. And so here you have all the same information, and here are here are the questions that you're asked. Okay. So that's an example 1, and you need to select the most appropriate answer. In this case, it's select the single most appropriate answer, but there will be questions that are multiple selection, in which you're asked to select not one question, but all responses that are correct. Okay, and I should warn you that if you mark a question as correct when it's in fact wrong, that is negative points in a multiple selection problem, but not in a multiple choice or a single selection problem. Okay, so here's what your quiz looks like. Here's a multiple selection problem, and it asks you to select all answers that apply. So you're to select the type of study that was done, if it's observational or if it's a designed experiment. If you were to select these 2 answers, one of them is right and one of them is wrong, you would get 0 points. So the effect of the one that is right would cancel out with the one that is wrong. Okay. So here's another select all answers that apply. Here's another select all. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. For this week, you have a syllabus quiz, and you should be able to answer these questions on your syllabus quiz just by reading the syllabus. So here it's worth 30 points. You're again allowed 2 attempts, and the average is taken. So be sure to read the quiz parameter fields. Okay, and here we can preview it. So some questions about contacting me, questions about response time, questions about exam, who your instructor is, questions about technology. Okay. Then there is a multiple selection problem here. Okay. So scrolling down just so you can see what other weeks look like. So in week 2 you just have 1 quiz. In week 3 you just have 1 quiz, but there's some supplemental material here. Here you have 2 quizzes in week 4. Okay, and let me keep going. Here's your exam in week 6. So you have a review. for your exam, and you can take it as many times as you like. I want to warn you that because you can take your review as many times as you like, your review score may not always correlate well with your exam score, just so that you're aware. So it's wise to treat the review as your exam, and also to review what you got wrong and to take it more times, but to treat your review seriously. Okay. So if you click on your review, you get a little bit of information. Okay, and you should be aware your exam is a timed test in which you have a single attempt. Okay. So here, you can click on your exam. It's not open for all dates, but before you take it, here's a little bit of information that you'll be given. Okay. There is a time limit. Okay. And you can take it anytime from October 10th, from October 1st until October 10th. Okay. So generally, this is how what you need to do each week is outlined here. No materials covered in week 6, just a review for you to get ready for your exam. Okay. In week 7, there is a group project in this course, and in this prior week, week 4, you select what your project is. In week 7, you provide a rough draft of your final project. Okay. Then we move on to covering material, some more material, more material, more material, then your second exam. Then a few more things. Then you prepare a statistical analysis draft, you turn in your final project, then you take your final exam. And that's the course. I'll come back to the project, but let's go over the syllabus now. After all, you do have a quiz on it. Okay. So in this syllabus, whether you're in my hybrid class or whether you're in my online class, the course content and syllabus and procedures are very similar. Okay. So if you're contacting me with questions, please be sure to put your name somewhere in the text body and Math 1040 in the subject line. Okay. Also, I have 2 sections of Math 1040, so it would be helpful if you'd identify if you're in the online section or in the hybrid section. Okay. Often it's very useful and important, and in fact required, that you include a picture of the question you're having trouble solving, so that I know directly what problem you're referring to, because this can lead to a lot of confusion, and if you just take a screenshot of it, it helps immensely. Okay. Now, the required textbook for this course is this text. However, I'm leaving it up to each student if they should decide that the course notes and lectures are sufficient for their learning, or one of these free alternatives to the course textbook. Please, by all means, if you want to buy the course textbook, do so. If you feel that the notes and lectures provided are sufficient, or one of these free online references is sufficient, you're welcome to use any or all of them. I should note that some textbooks, such as these 2 or these 3, all differ from each other slightly in minor ways that can affect your answers. My notes are geared towards this textbook, and all solutions are geared towards the approach and outlined in this course textbook and in the lecture notes. Okay. So if, for instance, you encountered a definition that was slightly different with one of these 2 sources, I would be using only the definition provided in this textbook and the solution and procedure outlined in this textbook. So it can affect your answers to some questions, but it's relatively minimal, and you should keep that in mind. Okay? So the standard is that we will use all conventions provided in this textbook and in the lecture notes. If you're curious about how your grade is given according to these components. You have a group project, which I'll discuss more in. You have your homework, which is your weekly quizzes, your 2 exams, and your final exam. Those are all outlined on the main page. These are your exam dates, okay? And just a few pieces of important information. Everything you need to know is in Canvas, okay? There shouldn't be a reason why you need to make up an exam because they're open for more than a week. Exams 1 and 2. The final exam, it has a smaller window because it is given during the final exam week. Okay. I want to note that you have a review for your exams 1 and 2, but not for the final exam. Okay. For your projects, it may be necessary or very beneficial for you to access New York Times articles. It's free for each student, and you can click here to get your free subscription as a Weber State student. Okay. Now, it's possible that some material in this course could conflict with a core belief, and if you believe this material is in conflict in the core beliefs, you should use the first week of classes to assess that and find a section of Math 1040 that does not conflict with your core beliefs. Okay. I will also reiterate, if you believe that you have an issue with core complaints, that you read this statement here that was issued by the university. Okay. I've covered this point, but I think it's an important one. Okay. This is a sustainable class, meaning that topics in this class are going to be centered around issues of sustainability. Okay. And there are some learning outcomes for sustainability. Students will be able to comprehend the interconnection between environmental, social, and economic systems in relation to sustainability, and understand that there are far-reaching consequences that impacts more than one discipline. Finally, I want you to be able to interpret statistical analysis, answer scientific questions appropriately, considering the scope of inference of the study, the weight of the evidence, and the emphasis on questions related to sustainability. Your group project, you can work in groups of 1 to 5. I highly recommend it. I generally prefer shorter group projects, but students tend to really have a lot to say. So, if you need to take more, if you have a lot to communicate, you can take up to 10 pages. It's quite easy to get 3 pages, especially with all the graphs and other things associated with it. Your group project is supposed to answer these big questions. Okay. One big thing that you should know when writing your project is that you should not write it in a bulleted list. It should be an essay style assignment. Okay. Now finally, your grades correspond to these percentages. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about the project now. So your project right here, your final project. You have 2 possible projects you can decide between. I think that the Salt Lake City temperature project is generally the one that's most preferred because mainly you need to complete the items that are outlined here. And this project is much more well outlined than the other project. So you need to discuss a introduction and implications and discuss at least 2 of the items here. Okay. Then you need to talk about the materials section. So talk about the type of the data and what the data can say. So that is more or less your first draft, is this piece right here. Okay. In the next section, you're to talk about your statistical methods. And you have to complete all of these items. But if you address all of these items, they're very well outlined. People find it generally straightforward. Okay, so you need to talk about all of these. So there are 3 topics here: average minimum temperature, average maximum temperature, and comparing average minimum temperatures before 1980 and after 1980. Okay, and you need to answer all of these questions that is on material that we will go over in this course. Okay, likewise here. Okay, then you should discuss your results. Okay, and here are a few prompts for discussion. You need to complete at least one of the bullets, and then you need to arrive at a conclusion. I should note that this is not an opinion piece on either of these projects. It is simply for you to report what you find. Okay. The second project is on pay disparity, and this is on an actual bank between the time period of 1965 and 1975 that was sued for sex discrimination and starting salaries. Okay. We focus mainly on starting salaries difference. Okay. So the question is there a difference between pay at this bank? And if there is, could it be for some other reason, such as education or seniority? Okay. And does the data back it up, most importantly? Okay. So these are the bullets that you need to address for this project. There's an introduction, there's an implication. Then very important is the analysis. Okay. Then finally, discussion and conclusion. These bullets have a lot for you to fill in, and more so than the Salt Lake City temperature project. This project requires more, I believe, but that's up to each individual student to decide. It requires more of a student generally. Okay. I should also note that your projects are checked for plagiarism. Okay. So make sure that you are not plagiarizing, that you're citing sources properly, and then you should be good. So in the analysis section for your project, there's statistical analysis draft that you have to turn in. This statistical analysis draft, there is an outline of the statistics that you need to compute. And if you click here, I'll preview it. This provides a lot of the output, but not all, of the data that you need to answer most of the statistical questions. Okay, and I'm going to read this to you because a lot of times people forget it when they're writing their statistical analysis draft. So I provide this analysis to you, and you're welcome to use this analysis to complete the analysis section of your signature assignment. You should not copy and paste the analysis except where required. And you should also remove any formatting. You are expected to put this analysis in your own words, and I want to highlight that. You're expected to interpret the analysis for the reader, and that is largely what you're graded on. Be sure to expand on the meaning of the numbers and the analysis in the context of the question and provide the output to the numbers analysis needed for your explanation. If you prefer to do your own statistical analysis, you're welcome to, and I provide the file of the raw data to do so. However, you'll need to know the commands to use in some sort of statistical software to produce this output. So here I have the methods exploring average minimum temperature, and so for example I provide a scatter plot. I provide a linear regression model, and you should format this correctly. You should put this output in, you should provide meaning to this output. Okay, so this analysis is provided for you here, and your job is to answer the questions for the analysis. Okay, I'm going to go back. For the pay disparity project, here is similar analysis that's provided, and we'll preview it. So again, you should not copy and paste this output. Okay, so you're welcome to use it, but you're expected to put this analysis in your own words. Okay, you should copy and paste the analysis where appropriate and modify its presentation. So here I provide the box plot, I provide some statistics, and I do a what's called two-sample t-test, and here's a question that corresponds to it, but you have to interpret this output. It's not enough just to provide this output. That would be like not many points, but you need to interpret this meaning and state the statistical conclusion. Okay. Now, this analysis isn't required for your draft of your submission because the material is covered later, but you'll need it for your final project. Okay, and this is all things that you'll learn throughout the course. Okay, and notice like I didn't answer the questions here normality. You have to answer, is this normal based on the graph? I provide you with the graph. Okay, so I just want to say welcome to Math 1040. That was a brief overview of what's expected for you in this course. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and thank you for taking this course.